We okay. So
Back again.
for another episode of Crazy Stupid Podcast, and we just finished watching The Last of Us. This is episode 7.
Somehow, which means the season is almost done.
Yeah, we only have 2 more episodes.
There's only 9.
Because remember, they combined it in episode 1. That was supposed to be 2, but
I'm not a fan of that.
yeah, I'm gonna have a bit of an identity crisis when this show's done.
I'm not a fan of that at all.
And it's such a big production. We probably won't get season 2 until like 2025.
What?
Yeah.
No, I don't accept that.
I think that's the route HBO's going, where they're not going to try to fit into the mold of a season every episode or every year.
Wait, so House of the Dragon is not coming back later this year?
No, that's coming back in 24.
So what are they? Do they have something else planned that's going to take the space?
In this year, well, there's Succession and Euphoria. And those each go for 2.5 months.
They don't fill the same gap. They don't. It's not
For
going
you.
to do it. It's not going to do it.
Succession, I think, will fill that gap for me. Euphoria, I don't know. Although there are probably some takes we could probably get with Euphoria. It'll be kind of heavy. And I don't know if this next season will be as good, but we'll see. So yeah, we just finished episode 7.
I think I read Euphoria is not coming back this year.
It's not?
I thought I read people were talking about this online. It's coming back a lot later than people thought. I can't remember exactly when, but I don't think it's this year. I think it might be next year, because people were like, "It's a teen drama; it shouldn't take this long." But I think it's because Zendaya's film schedule.
Oh, she has like Dune.
Yeah,
And probably some other things she's working on.
I could be wrong, but I think I read that. Anyway, Last of Us. I just feel like the show has mastered the art of giving you joy and then ripping it away from you the most horrific ways possible. And it's like, you know, it's coming the whole time, so you can't even fully immerse yourself in the joy. And then sometimes you do, sometimes you play yourself and you do, and you're like, maybe this time will be different, maybe things will end happily, and then you're always wrong. You're always wrong.
I don't know if maybe there's like a bit of a paradigm shift that I'm sort of experiencing now. I feel like this episode, with what Riley said to Ellie, sort of changed my perspective on how I've been processing and grieving with like the loss we're seeing from some of the characters, which is just the idea of everyone goes out that way at some point. Like that is the main benefactor for death. Like that's the main way people go out in this world now, right? It's not natural cause. People aren't dying in their sleep. It's not lung cancer, you know what I mean? It's dying at the hands of the infected.
Or other people.
Yeah, but I still think dying at the hands of infected, that's probably the highest way people are dying.
I do think that I feel like it's only true if you leave where you're. I feel like if you stay in the QZ, you'll just live out your life and die.
Yeah, maybe the culmination of both of dying at the hands of either an infected or a person.
No, but I mean, if you stay in the QZ, you might just die. You might just actually live a full life and then just die normally, because you're just kind of chilling in there.
I don't know if it's that simple for a lot of people. It kind of sounds like people end up going. They end up starving, so things happen often, because it sounds as if they're hanging people quite often.
I thought they were hanging fireflies.
No, they're hanging citizens for breaking the law.
Okay. Anyways, continue.
But it just kind of feels like there's an abrupt nature to, I guess, the way people die in this world. And so the way you sort of measure your understanding of life, like it has to change. Right? Because what Riley sort of says to Ellie is like, listen, it's either we die today or the next day or a couple of weeks or months or years from now. The likelihood that we have an abrupt death is pretty high. The likelihood is pretty high. And so when I sort of understood the way she viewed the world, I've sort of processed almost every death in the apocalypse a little bit different now. Because it's almost like it hurts, but maybe that makes those happy moments worth more now. You know? Like, I know that, like, Sam and Henry kind of went out in a pretty sad way, but, like, before they passed away, Henry got to see Sam laugh again, which he hadn't seen in God knows how long, you know? Ellie got a chance to, like, experience happiness. I mean, with Riley, she's getting a chance to experience it with Joel again. How long had it been since she had that chance to experience it with Joel? You know, so it's just I guess I don't know. I'm thinking even with like Bill and Frank, they went out on their own terms. It wasn't as abrupt, but still, like they sort of they clung on to life for as long as they could. Like they went out together, you know, faded away into their sleep. It's like a gloomy way, but like there's like I can sort of understand I don't know what word I want to use there.
I don't know either. You're coming at this from a completely different angle than me. I don't know.
I don't know.
Like you're talking about like a silver lining.
I guess so. You know, it reminded me of the series finale of Lost, when Jack's talking to his dad and he's like, "Everyone's got to die at some point, kiddo. Some of us are a little bit earlier than others, but we all get to that point at some point." And it's just sort of a reminder of like what happens, like what you do throughout that I'm still trying to formulate my thoughts, but like what you do throughout that process of whenever your time goes, like you got to cling on to those happy moments. I think that's what I've sort of landed on.
That's wild. You're doing way more optimistic than me. To me, I almost had the opposite feeling in this episode of that it doesn't make the happy moments worth more. It makes them not worth less, but like it feels like they were on the brink of a beginning of something and now they'll never get to see what that thing is. Like to me, it's like these happy moments are supposed to be like the jump start of a new thing for them. Right? Yeah. Like pretty like all of them. Like the same thing with like with Henry and Sam and Ellie, like how Sam was a little brother. Yeah. Like Sam and Ellie, they had like this, you know, friendship and, you know, they were kind of talking like maybe we'll kind of continue, you know, we'll be like a little group going forward. We'll stick together. Like it felt like it was the beginning of something that they could all experience and then like it gets ruined for them. And then same thing with this. It's like, oh, you know, at the end they kiss and then she's like, maybe I won't go. And then boom, death. But like that's how it felt for me of like these things that could have been something so beautiful. Sort
of robbed from that.
Yeah, it's just gone. And it's not that the happy moments mean less, but like kind of. Because it's like, they, you know, like they didn't get to see them through to fruition. It's like you get a taste of something good, but for what?
I think the for what is because that's the best thing that their new world can offer them.
It's the best, but I feel like it's also the worst. Like I feel like naturally it would be harder and harder to actually enjoy these moments because you are always waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like even watching the episodes, I feel like that where I'm like, I want to be in this and feel this joy, but I know that something terrible is going to happen, so I can't even really fully enjoy it. I feel like if you are repeatedly put in situations like that,
it can take a toll.
Yeah, it can eventually be like, I feel like you can either go one of two ways. Either you go the route of Riley where you're like, well, I'm going to make whatever I can count. Or you become really jaded and you're like, none of this matters anyway because eventually something terrible is going to happen.
I guess there's no other two ways to look at it, but I think I was just very inspired by the way Riley looked at the world because, as Craig Mazin said, she had already experienced loss, but in that moment, like, she seems pretty calm with what's about to happen.
I think she seemed to resign. I don't know. Resign is not the right word because obviously she's still going to. She's not giving up immediately. I don't know. It didn't feel inspirational to me. I guess it was just too tragic for me to feel that way.
No, I wouldn't say it was inspirational. I think it was I was inspired by her resilience. I think is what sort of gravitated because so far I had never seen anyone in their world express the idea of holding on for life just for the sake of doing it in that way. So I think that's what sort of made me like I've always appreciated Riley's character because of what she goes on to tell Ellie, which I think shapes the way Ellie sort of views everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I could see that. I mean, I did appreciate that last moment that they had. Also, I'm really glad that they didn't show us whatever happened next. I'm glad that they just let us.
No, that'd be too much.
Yeah.
Too much.
But
God, what was that like for Ellie?
she's got to have a whole bunch of survivor's guilt.
Well, like, does she just run away from Riley?
I don't know. I don't want to know what happened. I genuinely don't want to know what had to go down there.
Oh my God.
But it almost is like it almost makes it more tragic that Ellie lives because it's like in their heads it's like this actually sucks and is terrible because it's like right as something is starting for us, this terrible thing like at least that's how I think Ellie was looking at it. Like when she looks at her arm and starts freaking out, like trying to wipe it away, and it's just like no. Like I can literally hear her think thoughts of just like right as things are going good and things feel good, like this is like it's being taken away from me, like I'm not going to get to experience whatever came out of this, what comes next. But then I feel like they came to a point where they're like, we're going to go out together, and then they don't even really get to do that. I feel like in a way that makes it even worse.
It's almost like her immunity is like a blessing and a curse. Blessing in the way that potentially she can create a vaccine or a cure for people, but in that moment, like as an individual, it kind of took her agency away a little bit, because her and Riley made a decision that they are the only two people that understand each other in this entire world. I guess in their world, like there's no one else that understands them the way that each other do. And they make that decision to sort of go out all poetically. I can't even imagine, the kind of grief that Ellie is having to carry now that she realizes she couldn't do the one thing with the person that she loved. And it sort of mirrors back to like with Bill and Frank. I cling on to episode 3 even more after this episode because what Ellie and Riley were not able to do, like Bill and Frank were able to do. Like they were able to go out on their own terms. They were able to do it together, and they got that happy ending. And if you sort of juxtapose that to this episode, it shows how important Bill and Frank's story is because of how rare it happens. Even for someone as important to the plot as Ellie, she doesn't even get the thing that Bill and Frank got. And yeah, it just sort of shows how cohesive all the episodes are, and you can just keep making these juxtapositions between characters and the story arcs that they go through. And I don't know, it almost validates episode 3 even more in my mind.
Yeah, I can see that. They just keep introducing us to new duos. There's always a duo. You're always going to meet another pairing and see how their decision making, how their relationship is impacted by the circumstances.
What do you think of what they were trying to say between the Fireflies and Fedra?
I don't know. I still feel like I don't know enough about the Fireflies. I don't really know what they're trying to do. I don't,
Riley called them freedom fighters.
Well, yeah, I know that that's what they say about themselves. I don't know what their vision is what I'm saying. So it's hard to really say. Like we've kind of seen a couple of different examples of what things could look like if you overthrow Fedra or you don't have a Fedra with Jacksonville and whatever was going on with, I think this is Kathleen. But I don't really know what the Fireflies are trying to do or build up.
We do, Esther. We do know. Because look, Marlene says it very clearly in that first episode of like trying to restore democracy.
Okay, she did say that.
And in this episode, Riley mentions that like they've liberated other QZs across the area and restored it. Hold on. They restored it back to what they had before. That's what she says to Ellie, which means they've restored some form of democracy in those QZs, as opposed to it being completely authoritative with Fedra having complete control over everything. So I think the idea is they want to restore some form of democratic society in each of the QZs. Their methods of trying to get there are extremely violent, though. Because, I mean, Riley talks about like, oh, their people are starving, and then Ellie was like, all right, but you blew up that one spot that didn't really help people that were starving. Mm-hmm. So it's like, what are the ethics behind both sides? I don't know.
I mean, I think Ellie's the whole thing where she was like, we could be the difference. No, you can't. Sorry. That's the same good apple thing that the cops try to pull. Sorry, sis. It doesn't matter. You're not going to change. You're not. It's not going to happen that way.
So you don't think replacing people in those positions would change the structure or system?
No, because it's not a people problem. It's a system problem. System is a system. It functions as it's functioning. I just don't think that individual people... I just don't adhere to that philosophy that you can do that. I just don't think that works. And I think we've seen that people try to do that in real life, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Not that... Obviously, like, systems are made by people, impacted by people, etc., but... No. It just isn't... I just don't think that that's how it works when you have something that from the ground up is just built on extreme hierarchy, extreme... I don't know, basically just systems of oppression all the way through and down. I think it would be tough for one or two people to be like, we can make this better.
Regardless of how many good decisions they make. I mean, that guy who Ellie is talking with, I mean, like, he seemed like a decent dude. And
yeah, but he is still, I mean,
right.
Apparently hanging people, and
yeah.
Because he thinks it's necessary. He thinks we are what's holding this thing together.
It reminded me of like one good cop versus like the system that they're sort of a part of.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. But I'm torn though. Cause like, if they're not there, what does the QZ look like?
Didn't you just say that's what I was saying, and you said that we already know?
No. I'm saying in a scenario where they were to just completely step away, it's not like it's like a vacuum. I don't think it would naturally mean that people would directly go straight into democracy, because we saw that with Kathleen. What they were running was not a democracy. Like, she was still in charge. She had an assistant, the guy who voiced Tommy. I guess I'm my thought process is, what does like the reconstruction process of society look like? How does that process get going?
I think the Fireflies would probably have to do a smidge better job of buying people into their entire philosophy before they do anything. Because if you do a complete a violent overthrow now, and then are like, now this is what we want to do, not everybody's going to be on board, so it probably won't work. You probably have to do a little bit more, you know, you have to sell your point a little bit more. You have to make yourselves more appealing so that people are already bought into the idea of something new before you try to do it.
You know, this reminded me of that thing that those activists did.
Minneapolis.
With was it one of those Van Gogh paintings?
Oh. I don't know what.
When they like poured.
They put soup on it. The painting is fine.
Yeah, but it's like
glass.
That didn't feel like effective activism.
It was effective because their point was to get people's attention, and that's what they did.
No, but it okay. I feel like if you want people to buy in, it can't just be about exposure. There has to be some attractiveness, some interest that you're selling to the people who are not on board yet. But I don't think people who have no knowledge or are not as fully on where you're at, if they're still a little bit behind in their journey of understanding like new ideas, new progressive ideas for society, what does that buy-in process look like? Because for someone that's detached and they look at like, bro, you're trying to raise awareness for, I think it was climate change, and you're throwing like soup at a painting, they're not going to always make that distinction. I'm not saying it is a fair reaction, but it happened. I'm reading through these comment sections, they're like, this was dumb. Like this doesn't help your cause. And I'm not saying it's a fair one, but there has to be a better way of the buy-in process.
I mean, it's not necessarily about better or worse. It's just about what is your goal for that particular action. To me, I thought it was pretty clear that their entire purpose for that was to just get people paying attention. And sure, you'll have a ton of people that will just, say, write a little comment and then look away. But you'll probably also have a ton of people who are like, what are these people doing? Let's go look at their website. People go on their website. People see, like, I think to me, you have to go in, whatever action you are planning, you have to go in with some sort of strategic plan of what you want it to achieve. I don't think that those activists were trying to make an appeal to people. I think they were just trying to just jolt people and be like, we're here and we're doing this and we're saying this and we're not going to leave you alone. It was the same thing with like the AIDS epidemic and AIDS activists. There was various people. You had like the AIDS quilt, right? Which was like definitely about like appealing to people, getting people engaged, where they had like all these mothers and sisters from all over the country made like little quilt squares based on like people in their lives who had died from AIDS, sons, husbands, brothers, whatever. And then they send it to the activists. I can't remember. It wasn't ACT UP. It was another organization, another group of people. And they made a giant quilt. And it was just there, like it was at the National Mall, like right downtown. And they had this giant quilt, and they would go up and they would read the names of all of the people who died of AIDS. And like they would get tons of reporters, like news people would be there all the time. And that was one form of activism that got a lot of people's attention, and that was like more comfortable and probably more appealing and more about building empathy for the cause. But there were other people, like the ACT UP organizers, that were like, we don't really think that is enough, because you guys are sort of you're taking something that's like heinous and tragic and you're turning it into something beautiful. And I get what the point is, and that it's more appealing to people, but this isn't beautiful. And so they would do much more aggressive things, like burn Dr. Fauci in effigy and stuff like that. They really did that. Or like take the ashes, they took the ashes of their loved ones who died of AIDS, marched them down to the White House and threw them onto the front lawn.
I remember that.
I feel like it's just there's different purposes for different forms of action, and you just kind of have to know what your purpose is. So I feel like with the Fireflies, I do think, I mean, if your goal in the end is to have a government that is run for the people, by the people, then you need to have buy-in from the people. And so, probably just going around bombing food supplies is probably not the best thing to do if you're only doing that. Like it's like it works in that it wakes people up and it gets their attention, and that's important. But you probably also need to do some other things on the other side of like also convincing people that your cause is actually worthwhile and it's going to work in their benefit.
Like there has to be room for all forms of activism.
Yeah.
To sort of, in order for it to be completely effective in getting all of the outcomes that you're looking for.
I think so, because I think they sort of balance each other out. I think you see that in pretty much every successful movement that we've had. The AIDS epidemic, the civil rights movement. There's always like a both and, where you have different groups of people. And sometimes those groups of people disagree with each other and they're very vocal about how they don't agree with the other's tactics. But in the end, I do think you need all the tactics. Because it's like you need to apply pressure and you also need to win people over at the same time.
Yeah, because the pressure is not just on like people to wake up. It's also to like tell whatever oppressive structure that like you're serious about the problems they're creating. And you can't really do that with empathy, because if they had empathy, they wouldn't be doing it in the first place.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that sort of clears up where my thought process was going. Yeah. I think that clears it up.
Yeah. This episode, it was like an ode to the classic, like, coming-of-age teen rom-com. That's how it felt. I was like, aw.
It really did.
This is sweet.
You see, like, the little camera angles where, like, it, like, zooms in on them
hands,
holding hands, or when Ellie is still lingering on looking at the Victoria's Secret, and she's, like, trying to fix herself up.
So cute.
The little, like, awkward long stares that they would kind of give each other, like in the photo booth, when like Riley doesn't catch herself that like she's still kind of like leaning on Ellie a bit, like socially it's a little like too long. Yeah.
It was all so
they had
cute.
all the cues.
It was so cute.
Man, this one was always rough for me.
So you do this whole flashback in the game.
It's a extended, like a DLC, basically.
What's that?
You buy it and you can play an additional story mode.
Okay.
I think I bought it for like $10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there others that you didn't buy that they might do in the show that you won't know?
No, I think this was the only one that they did.
Okay.
People are asking for some other ones of like Tommy for this first game and the second one. But that'd be pretty cool because he has a much bigger role in the second game, but still not as big.
Yeah.
And so it would be kind of cool to see like some of the things that he's into. Yeah.
Damn. But you said that you had a rant.
So, okay. I've been trying to gather my thoughts on this because I don't want to come across as ungrateful. And I'm sure that the actors on this show, they're getting an opportunity of a lifetime. I mean, granted, like Stormy Reed was already like pretty famous already.
My girl.
Yeah, she kills it. But it does kind of suck. As much as I love The Last of Us, this has been my favorite show that I've watched since Game of Thrones. Like, it's higher than, I mean, all my favorite shows. The Wire, Friday Night Lights, Less Breaking Bad, all of them. But this is like a reoccurring theme I have seen in television, even as Hollywood has tried to become a bit more progressive. It can sometimes still feel like there is a limitation to what characters, like people of color, can portray. And it's becoming a little bit more noticeable when it is a source adaptation. So, for example, obviously Henry and Sam are always black. Riley's always black. But Sarah, Joel's daughter, was not. Mm-hmm. She wasn't black, or you could, biracial, mixed race, whatever you want to call it. Which means that Joel, his wife, was clearly black.
Yeah.
Same thing with Tommy and his wife. She's not black in the games. And from one angle, I appreciate Craig Mazin trying to be more inclusive in saying that we have to have more representation in the show. And I always love that. But it can still sometimes feel like there's a cap on how inclusive some of these directors can be in their movies and their TV shows because of how limiting the original source material allows them to be. Joel, you could have made him black, I guess.
They made him Latino.
Yeah, but Pedro Pascal still considers himself white. Which, okay. But, I also think about in House of the Dragon when they changed the race of House Velaryon to black. It makes a lot of sense, but still, there is a limitation. There's a cap on how far people of color can be in terms of the role that they play in the show. And then what often happens is because there is a cap on how big of a role they can have, they always tend to die off first. That's it's kind of becoming something I can't keep ignoring. Think about in House of the Dragon. Lena dies. Vaemon, he's gone. Laenor he's not dead, but he's gone. He's not in the show anymore. In the books, he's dead. So I do appreciate them altering that. But he's still gone from the show. That's 3 out of a very limited pool of black characters we were already kind of lucky to have. Mm-hmm. Right? And so it already feels kind of slim pickings when you keep killing them off. And it's kind of the same thing with Last of Us that I'm kind of noticing. It's on the one hand, I appreciate that they're being more inclusive, but damn. Sarah, gone. Henry, Sam, gone. Riley, gone. And it's damn, can we have people of color that survive? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like these shows are not the best example. I think that your point is right. I just don't know if these are the shows that to make that point with, because I don't think that they're treating the characters of color the side characters of color any different than the white side characters, if that makes sense. I feel like all of the people that Joel and Ellie have come across have died. They all die. Tess, dead. Kathleen and that whole town of people, dead. Mm-hmm. Bill and Frank, dead. They all die. So, for me, it doesn't bother me quite as much because I feel like there's not any differential treatment. That is what I always think about. I think, okay, are you just treating your black characters as sacrificial lambs they are not fully developed characters? They don't matter much to the plot. They're only there to die. How the classic trope in horror movies, right? If there's a black person in the movie, they're going to be some weird stereotype and they're going to die first. And that's the only reason why they're in the movie. That's not what's happening here. They're giving them fully fleshed out stories, fully fleshed out characters that we care for, that matter a lot to the plot. And then their deaths also matter. And also they die just the same way that the other characters in the show
and they don't feel expendable.
They don't feel expendable at all. It's meant to be painful and sad when they go. You're meant to be attached to them. You're meant to empathize and feel for them in the same way that you empathize for the characters, the other side characters that aren't black. Okay. I just think it's a violent show, so just tons of people are going to die, if they had not, even if they, the fact that the fact that some of these characters were recast as black actually adds to the point that I think actually makes me more comfortable, because when these characters were white, they died too. When they were white, when Sarah was white in the game, she still died. Yeah. So regardless of who they had cast, they would have died. It's just the way that the story goes. So it's not bothering me in this show very much. I think House of Dragon, I feel mostly the same. I think where I agree with you though is the point that like it's just that the source material, we just need source material that's based around that's black people. That's really it. Is that because if you're right that if you are trying to adapt a story that was already built around white people, then there's only so far you can go when you're trying to diversify things.
Right.
I mean, you could do something real. They could have made the Targaryens black, I guess. Like, that's something that they could have done. Like, there's no reason why they couldn't have done that. They definitely could have made that choice. But I just think the real solution is just you need to start adapting more stories that are about black people. Enter my plug for Children of Blood and Bone and Who Fears Death.
Weren't they supposed to be producing some? And now I don't know if some of those are gonna happen. Like Who Fears Death was something that was supposed to happen with HBO.
Yeah, I don't know. It still might be there. George R.R. Martin is involved in that, so it could be that they're kind of busy.
Just they cut so many ideas.
So yeah, I don't know. I have to look it up and see. But if they don't do it there, somebody else should definitely buy it. It's a awesome story, and it's all black people. Nobody in that story is white. Every single person in that story is black. It takes place on the continent of Africa. It's a beautiful story. Same thing with Children of Blood and Bone. As far as I know, that's still happening. The author has written the script, so it's written. I believe they have cast some people.
Oh shoot!
So there's things coming, but I do think we need a little bit more. And there's a ton of source material that people could be adapting right now. Like if you go into the young adult fiction section of a bookstore,
there's a lot.
There are so many like black fantasy, sci-fi things there that, you know, I think we just need a bit more balance in what they're choosing to adapt is the real problem.
So just a slight pivot, but I had a couple of things that I still wanted to say about Ant-Man, but were there any other thoughts you had about Last of Us?
No.
Okay. Because I'm a little annoyed at some of the comments we got.
I thought you already responded to the comments.
Well, some of them, I was just like, I don't know if I have the energy to do like one at a time.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I don't understand this notion of just be grateful that I am experiencing from a lot of Marvel fans after this Ant-Man movie, because a lot of people have said that they did not enjoy it. A lot of people did, but there's still a lot of people that are like, I wanted something more. And we keep getting called, we as in, you know, the people who were disappointed, keep getting told, you went in always wanting a movie to be like Endgame. And I just feel like that is such a dishonest and unfair criticism to the people who were disappointed with Ant-Man. Because I don't think I wanted an Endgame out of Ant-Man. I did, however, want a good movie. Like, I was a little annoyed at that because I'm reading through a couple of them. They weren't all of them, but quite a few where it's just like, bro, I don't think it's asking a lot for a movie franchise that has made tens of billions of dollars to put in real effort in making a great movie. If I'm going to spend $13 to go to the theater and watch it.
I think, the more I think about it, I think the real problem is that Kang was in this movie. If this had just been a run-of-the-mill Ant-Man movie, that would have been honestly fine. That would have been like pretty consistent, I think, with the Ant-Man movies, I think.
But you know what it was too? Because Jordan sent us, he sent me and Gio an article of like some of the VFX workers were kind of frustrated because it was like, yo, you guys either cut back on our budget or didn't give us as much as we needed.
Because the entire thing had to be visual effects, the whole entire place.
Give them the money. And people, I know they tried to make this comparison of like, well, they did it for Black Panther. And I'm like, you're losing me there. Black Panther is just a bigger, the name is going to mean more than Ant-Man. So yeah, you want to prioritize. But there was enough room for both movies to get the same amount of budget. And if you are trying to make a movie that is establishing the next villain, doesn't it make sense to give them the proper amount of funds? They gotta start treating these VFX workers properly. Like,
yeah, as a franchise, they're way too dependent on them to not be.
It's what I'm
come
saying.
on, you guys.
And maybe they're like the numbers aren't showing that it should matter as much because people are still going. But it does suck as like
you
a
want
human.
good product.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, just like as a person, you're overworking them through all of that, and like you're still not even giving them the adequate amount of resources to do the best that they want to do. That kind of sucks.
Because they use VFX. I didn't know this, but like, okay, you know how there's the scene in No Way Home where all the Spider-Men land on the thing?
Yeah.
They filmed that for real. Like, there's the video of the three of them jumping down. But then they overlay it with VFX. They use VFX even for things that they don't need to use VFX for.
To kind of polish
filmed
it up,
with real people, and you still went over it. Like, if you're gonna do that, then you need to spend the money to make it look good, and also to make their lives easier.
That's.
But I honestly think. I even think that the VFX could have been overlooked in the same way that they're overlooked in other... Like, if I'm watching a movie that I'm having fun watching, I'm not thinking about the VFX. Like, I'll watch a Marvel movie and have a great time. I'll be like, everything flawless, no notes. And then, like, 3 months later, somebody will, like, put up a clip of,
the film bros.
Of, like, a scene in the movie where the VFX are, like, kind of shaky. And I'm like, I mean, looking at it now, I guess you're right. But when I was watching it, I didn't even notice. Like,
I think sometimes maybe it doesn't translate over well into, like, Blu-ray.
Maybe that could be part of it too. But even when I watch them on Disney Plus when they come out later, I'm just not thinking about that. I'm just having a good time, so it really doesn't matter. I think I really think where they messed up was you chose to put Kang in this movie, but then you chose to make a regular Ant-Man movie, and the two things just don't coincide. No. I think the people who like it are liking it as an Ant-Man movie. They're like, whatever, it was fun. That's what I expect from an Ant-Man movie. The people who dislike it are disliking it as an introduction for Kang the Conqueror. Because it's like Kang the Conqueror is such a, formidable opponent that you need something a little weightier to make it work.
The sell point has to land.
Yeah.
Like, yes, I understand the ants gained intelligence. I don't care.
That was so funny.
I get it. In terms of a narrative, yes, it makes sense. I still don't care.
I also think that you probably could have even sold the movie with all the same plot points if you just spend a bit more time developing them. Because the ants was like a last minute throw-in. It was like, we're not even thinking about the ants at all. And then it's like, what's that? Michael Douglas? What? No.
Hank.
But what's the actor's name?
Hank. You talking about the character or the real
the
name?
The actor of Hank Pym.
Oh, I don't remember.
He's like, it's not Michael Douglas. It might be his dad. Anyways. Estevez. Okay, sorry. It's going to bother me. But all of a sudden he's like, I've been hearing the ants all this time, and they have gone through thousands of years of intelligence, and they threw that at the last minute to like make it make sense, but there was no like prior to that we weren't seeing the ants, we weren't thinking about the ants, we weren't talking about exposition. The ants. Yeah, I think you probably could have even made it work, at least work better with the exact same story if you had just like flesh things out a little bit more. Because even like the entire world, they just kind of threw us in there.
The world building was not that great.
It wasn't good at all.
It was not
they
that
threw us
great.
in there and it was like, here's this place that have buildings that move and they're alive, and here's these people, they have these flying things that you ride, and it was all over the place. I didn't even have a complete understanding of like, so they're colonized. What's going on? I didn't understand. I was like, they don't like King, but is he in charge? I don't like. It just wasn't really clear. They just didn't spend enough time, I think, building up all of the things that you would need to build up so that everybody could really buy into what was about to happen.
And I don't think even after this movie, I still don't think I fully understand what the quantum realm is. They have sort of made, mentions. They've done examples of like what happens, like time works differently down here. It's such a vague statement that I think it can be helpful when you're trying to like write a plot, because it's like, no holds barred at that point. You can kind of
You
you
can
can
just
do whatever you want.
yeah.
But when that happens, if it's too loose, it can kind of throw the audience off, where it's just kind of like, okay,
how does this work?
how does it work again?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Also, I was thrown off by the fact that there was other human beings down there.
Like, are they? Yeah, well, yeah, because what's his name's character? He said, I guess I am technically a human, which I was like,
what are these people doing down here? I had so many questions. I was like, like maybe these are the rules of like Star Wars, where it's like there's just some people that are just people.
But still,
but like,
I felt like Star Wars
those are the rules of Star Wars. It's just that those are the rules of Star Wars, and Star Wars, that's just what it is. That they're in a galaxy far, far away, so they're not even in our galaxy. So technically, none of them are human, technically, because they're not from Earth, and that's just how it is. You just have things that look different, whatever. But here, like all of the times that they have introduced alien species before, they look like they're like aliens, and they're like consistent with each other.
Yeah. Although Sylvester Stallone was in Guardians of the Galaxy, and he looked like a human.
Fair point.
I don't know. It
So
still
maybe,
felt like
so
it
maybe
made
not.
sense.
So I don't know. That point might not be anything, because you're right. Because now I think about it, in Thor Ragnarok, they were like in other planets, and there was humans all over the place.
Yeah, it's just I don't like this idea of like.
But the fact that they're in a subatomic
I feel like it
realm
should be different.
Makes it more complicated.
Yeah. Like the likelihood of finding a being that looks very close to us in another world is higher than like going subatomic and finding other people that look like us. Just like, I don't know. But it was just kind of annoying, because it's like, yo, why are we? I don't understand the idea that like it's not okay to criticize a Marvel movie. I don't understand how can we like at least attempt to have some nuance where like, yes, I did have a good time. It was a fun movie, but there were some flaws that is okay to point out. Like both of those things can exist together, but it does feel like sometimes a lot of Marvel fans, we can get a little defensive when someone criticizes our movies.
I think it's because people are annoyed with the camp of people that is like hypercritical of all of them.
That's true.
Because it is an entire franchise that like a big chunk of it is like you just go to have fun, you don't take it too seriously. Like for the most part, they have moments where they're like, we're going in, we're gonna make this real, Wakanda forever, Endgame, Infinity War, Civil War. There's moments where they're like, this is for real now, get serious. But for the most part, it's kind of like you just kind of go, you have a good time. It's gonna be a little corny, it's gonna be a little, and that just is what it is. And then there's people that will be like really hypercritical of that all the time. So I think some people are annoyed with that, and so all criticism feels like that to them.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, there is that feel of like with Marvel, like don't take us too seriously, but that is still done with a charm that is well done. We have seen that before. Like, I mean, there were instances even in the first Iron Man where it's just like, come on. Like, it's a little silly, but it still made a lot of sense narratively. Guardians of the Galaxy, same way. In Ragnarok, the same exact way. And I think when people say it's hard to come off of that phase 3 high, we're not just talking about the high stakes of trying to fight Thanos and everyone coming together and getting the really portal scene. The quality was exceptional. I mean, the idea of Winter Soldier to Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame. Like, I know that like there were a couple of movies that came out in between. I think Ant-Man and Captain Marvel came out in between that. Ant-Man and the Wasp and Captain Marvel came out in between that. But just those 4 movies, the quality was so great. And then Thor Ragnarok came in around that time as well.
I guess so.
Yeah, but to have all of those things feel very consecutive in a way, that is what it's like. It's hard for people to accept less.
And I think it's also like, I mean, accept less for certain things. Like, you kind of knew going into Captain Marvel, Ant-Man and the Wasp, you knew that those were not going to be of the same caliber. Those are like, it's like a side mission.
Yeah.
It's like we have the main thing going on here, and these movies are like, we know they're going to hit every time. And then we have the little side mission movies. Mm-hmm. I think now what's happening is it's not as clear as what are the side mission movies and what are the like main go-to narrative driving movies. It's a little bit more fuzzy.
But I don't think that applies to Ant-Man.
I think it does apply to Ant-Man. I think the problem is this seemed like it was going to be a hard-hitting narrative-driving movie, but actually it was a side mission movie.
See, that
but we
marketing
didn't know.
We
didn't know it was a side mission movie because you're introducing such an important character that we're expecting. You know, like Captain Marvel was like, she's an important character for sure, essential. We needed her. But her movie took place before everything that was going down.
Right.
So we knew this is a side mission movie. You're introducing us to her, but what's happening in this movie is not going to have the same weight as what we're seeing in like the main storyline because we're not in that storyline. Mm-hmm. But now I feel like we don't know what the storyline is anymore. That's the problem because there's so much.
Wait, just hold on. Let's bring it back. It's been very clear that there's like pockets that they're trying to create. The multiverse, I think, is the main storyline.
Okay, so then the problem is that the movies that are supposed to move the multiverse storyline forward that should feel like the best movies are bad.
That's, I think, the problem.
Doctor Strange
there
was
we
bad.
Go. Okay. They're not, I don't think the main ones are not bad. They are just not at the level we've come to expect
from the main
ones.
Yes, they feel like side mission movies. Doctor Strange felt like a side mission movie.
But even in Doctor Strange, we're learning more about the rules of the multiverse. We're learning more about incursions. Those core principles of the main story of this new phase, if you're going to introduce those, the movie has to be great. Because in Loki, I felt like the story was really good, mm-hmm. and I got the sense of like the stakes were really high. After that season finale of Loki, I was like, MCU raised the stakes again, and I didn't think it was possible. And then after that, I was just kind of like, whoa, we're kind of in a bit of a decline here. And I know they have to bring in characters, I know they have to build up, but then I went into Multiverse of Madness, and it was
mid.
It was fun, but it was not the standard we've come to know with the top movies. And, you know, as we mentioned, the same thing with Ant-Man. I don't get it. I don't know. But
they're doing too much, and that's all that I think it is. I think they're doing way too much.
I think a bigger problem is the loss of directors. I think that's what it is.
What did they losing directors too?
People have just kind of moved on.
I guess, but you find there's other good ones out there.
Because here's the thing. VFX aside, for Ant-Man, what happened in Ant-Man, it being, in my opinion, it being a good or bad movie in terms of the quality of it, should not be impacted by everything else that's going on. I think if you were to just look at this as just a movie and say, like, from like a technical standpoint, it did feel mediocre at a lot of points. That, I think, is where my concern is.
Yeah, I think things are feeling mediocre because I think they're doing too many things.
How? But if everything was great, them doing too many things wouldn't be an issue.
I don't think that you can have everything be great when you're doing so many things, is what I'm saying. I think that because you got your resources being poured into all of this, you got your manpower being poured into all these different projects. I just think that you're spreading yourself really thin instead of focusing in and being.
But it's not like the same writers that are doing each movie, though.
No, I mean, maybe I'm wrong in how I'm thinking about this, but to me, that's what it feels like. It feels like you're putting things out all the time. There's a high volume of content. And the minute that you guys started putting out a high volume of content, the quality of the content took a dip. It used to be you would get like 1 or 2 Marvel movies a year, like spread out.
Nah, it was more like three or four, wasn't it? Around like phase 2. Well, no, you might be right.
It felt like 1 or 2 to me.
Might be right.
And now we are getting 1 or 2, maybe more, and then also like all these shows. Also,
no, more than 1 or 2. Think about last year alone.
How many came out last year?
There was
Multiverse of Madness.
There was Multiverse of Madness. There was Thor. There was Wakanda Forever.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
and No Way Home came out at the end of the year before that.
Yeah,
so it was
you know
like,
what I mean?
Yeah, we're only going like 3 or 4 months between movies, and in between the movies, we're getting a show. I think that they would benefit from being like, this year, these are our 2 big projects. These are the 2. It could be a show or a movie. It could be 2 movies, but I think they would benefit from being like, this is it. Like this year, these are the Marvel things that you are getting from us, and we're going in and we're going big on these.
Yeah, because remember after Infinity War, I think we got Ant-Man and the Wasp and Captain Marvel, but Endgame didn't come till like a year and 3 months later.
Yeah, they took their time,
and there weren't any TV shows in between that.
Yeah, they took their time. I think they just need to slow down a little bit,
which I think they are, but
yeah, because I think you can still give us all of these. You can still give us all of these characters. We don't have to get them all at one time. We'll be okay.
Yeah.
There doesn't need to always be a Marvel thing out. It's okay to just get a little breathing room. Let us miss you a little bit so that when we come back, we're excited. We haven't seen you in a while, you know?
Good point. And I think we're a little... we are being dishonest about the inconsistency in quality in comparison to the other phases. I'm not crazy. Doesn't it feel different? Like yes. The quality is kind of up and down. And honestly, like I know that there were misses. I know that there were misses in the other phases, but this one feels different.
This is what I was saying after you watched Multiverse of Madness, and you were telling me I was crazy.
Because that was the one, in my opinion, the one semi-miss in phase 4 so far. But then after Multiverse of Madness, that's when we were getting She-Hulk that is fun. You know?
I stand by my opinion that She-Hulk would have been a phenomenal show if it was a simple Monster of the Week courtroom drama. That's all we needed from She-Hulk. We didn't need anything else. We didn't need to see the real Hulk, Bruce, what's his name? Banner. We didn't need anything. All we needed was She-Hulk being a lawyer. Every week another monster. Solve the mystery. Who's guilty? Who's not? Are they going to get away with it? Intro Daredevil. 1 episode. He's a lawyer. Boom. That's it. That's all we needed from that show. If that's all that they did, it would have been chef's kiss. It would have been good at what it was meant to be. But instead, they were like, we're going to try to do this.
It just became a little messy.
We're going to do this. Yeah. The same thing about Miss Marvel. I think the same thing about Miss Marvel. If Miss Marvel had just been teenage girl, being a teenage girl and a superhero, coming of age, I've got a crush, I like boys, and I'm also saving the world sometimes, or saving my neighborhood here and there. Chef's kiss, beautiful. No notes. I think it would have been. I still loved the show, but I loved it the most at the beginning, when it was her just being her.
I don't know. I'm not saying Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars won't be phenomenal. They might be great. They might even be better than Infinity War and Endgame. I think the road feels more rough.
I think the biggest concern is that, because when does Kang Dynasty come out?
2025 or 6, one of them.
See, I think that's concerning to me because I don't think we're going to get enough build-up. I think that the build-up to Thanos...
When did Phase 4 start? 2020?
Yeah. But like the build-up to Kang really started, last year with Loki?
2 years ago. 2021.
Okay, maybe we'll be okay. But it's still no, and I don't think so because
It feels rushed. It feels faster
because we've only had 2 projects. We've only really had 2 projects that are building up to Kang. It was Loki and this.
And then we'll get him again in season 2 of Loki, though.
Okay, so maybe season 2 of Loki will help us out a lot.
I need
That's
it. I desperately need it.
I do think a big problem is that because they're branching out into all of these other pockets, that the build up to the big bad is not as focused or driven. Because in the first 3 phases, everything was doing this, heading in the same direction. All of these stories you had and that's what made everything so beautiful. The Infinity Stones were showing up in all of the movies slowly. Everything slowly came together over time. Avengers, you like Avengers, the first one, it's Thanos. They're fighting his things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everything was very streamlined. The buildup was nice and slow. So when you finally got there, the payoff was so good.
You know what it is? This is my theory. I think all of these shows, they're not just building up Kang for phase 4 and 5, but they're setting the groundwork for things like Galactus. You know, they got the Celestials and these big beings that doesn't matter. Big beings that are like these sort of celestial gods that sort of have all of these control over worlds. And then, so you bring in the Eternals, and even in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Star-Lord's father was technically a Celestial. Yeah. And then you got the mutants, so they're clearly trying to build up the X-Men. All of this is still going to happen.
I forgot about the X-Men.
All of this is clearly happening after Kang. Not that we won't get more characters, but like them being focal points will happen after Kang.
So maybe Kang isn't the big bad. Maybe that's really what it is.
I think he's a big bad for, like how Loki was for like phase 1 and 2. Where like he was the main villain for Thor 1, Avengers, and then Thor 2. So like he played such a crucial role.
Yeah, but he never felt like a big bad. He never felt like you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I thought Kang was the next Thanos, but you're Thanos?
Yes, he is. But I'm saying his role won't be like Thanos because the speed of which the next big bad will come in will be quicker.
But maybe he's not supposed to be the next Thanos. Maybe he's supposed to be a Loki.
He could be. And then the next big bad could be Doctor Doom because they're bringing in Fantastic Four. And Doctor Doom plays a big role in Secret Wars. And because clearly Kang, I don't think Kang is supposed to be like a whole arced villain as like Thanos is. Because
if that's the case, then that makes me feel a lot different.
Oh, wait,
that actually changes a lot.
I feel a little bit more comfortable now that I just thought this out loud.
Because it's like if he's just supposed to be like a Loki, then like this is fine. Then like this is all fine.
There's a complexity to what he's fighting for. He wants to save the multiverse, not like total annihilation. He's not, you know what I mean? Like he is what he wins, and what he's trying to prevent would be a loss for everyone.
Yeah.
It's not like a thing with Thanos where like he could have just doubled resources. No, Kang is like...
That's so stupid for that.
Yeah.
I'm never gonna... What's wrong with you?
Kang is like, if I don't control timelines, we will lose.
Yeah.
Like that's different. That's a different kind of villain. So
no, it even has to be... I mean, if he's supposed to be a Loki and not a Thanos, then the stakes for him also need to be a little lower, I would say. Because the stakes with Loki weren't that big.
I don't think it's an either or. I think it's like a mixture of both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, yeah, then that's better then. Because then we are pacing ourselves for something else. Because this is the other thing this is the other not complaint, but concern that I had. I was like, I just feel like there was too many gods. I just like there's too many godlike figures. I was like, what are we supposed to be concerned about in this universe?
See, and that's another thing.
I was like, we got the Celestials over here. First of all, no one's even mentioned those guys since Eternals. Not a single... I'm like, he came out of the ocean.
And then Arsham came in, cleared the skies, and pulled 2 people out.
Showed up.
Talk about
they could see him in the sky. Nobody has mentioned him since. Okay.
Moon Knight.
Thank you. So we've got the big Celestials, which I am like, are they on? Because to me, I feel like there has to be a hierarchy of these powerful beings. And for a long time, I was like, I can't really tell who was in charge. You have them. Then at the beginning of Loki, I was really confused because I was like, there's Time Lords. I was like,
Yeah, man, that's all fake.
No, I know now, but at the beginning of Loki, I was like, the Time Lords too? The Time Lords, the Celestials is too much. Then they're fake, but you do have Kang, which essentially he is a Time Lord, basically. So that's a lot. So you have Kang, you have the Celestials.
Do you need some water?
Then you also have the Egyptian gods. But then you also have the Norse gods.
No. Wait. Slow down.
The Greek gods.
Hold on. Those ones you're mentioning are all in the same tier. Because the ones that you're mentioning were all there in that communal place with Zeus.
Were the Egyptian gods there?
Yes. People had screenshots of them being in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know. That's helpful.
Yeah.
It just felt like there was so many like world-ending events, like world-ending powers. Like,
well, see, I think that's also
a giant alligator god came smashing through the town.
You brought in all of those gods, which I think that connects to things with Celestials and Galactus. But why did we need to introduce them now? I think is like.
I think what I'm looking for is the common thread. I appreciated that in the first 3 phases, there was like big, powerful people in all those movies that they were trying to defeat. They were like trying to do crazy things, but you had the common thread of those Infinity Stones. Those Infinity Stones were going to show up in every single thing. They're going to show up in every movie in some way, shape, or form, so that there was like a common theme threading through all of them, and so that it made sense that then the big bad villain at the end was the guy who had all of them. I'm looking for that. I need a little something. I just need something to connect the dots.
It's Kang.
Kang is connecting the dots? I thought the dots need to connect to Kang.
They all are. I think. So this is what I think that we're seeing so far. The weapon that Kamala has, and the weapon that Shang-Chi has.
Oh, Miss Marvel, sorry.
And the weapon that Shang-Chi has, those are connected to things that Kang has built. They look very identical to the technology that he had in the quantum realm. Okay,
that's good. That's helpful. Okay.
And, I mean, Incursions, Multiversal War, Kang. There's another one that I was going to say. Loki, I guess, was the other one.
And even No Way Home, the multiverse.
Yeah. So multiverse and Kang.
There's a little something there.
It's there. I think the multiverse side has been fine. The movies, the quality has kind of been up and down, but the narrative from the multiverse has been fine. I think it gets harder with the other gods that they've built in. I don't even know if that was necessary. You could have just slowed down and introduced them a little bit later on.
Yeah,
what's the rush of trying to get there so soon?
I even think like with the Eternals now it's kind of like, so where y'all at? You know what I mean? Like,
they're gone, remember?
All of them?
Yes, remember half of them went to go
I thought he only
went
took
to go.
her.
No. Listen. So Cersei, Phastos, and what was Camille Nanjiani's character's name is? But those 3, Arishem took them, went away, and then the others like Angelina Jolie, what's the speedster? Oh, it's gonna bug me. But like her, then they met with Harry Styles. Like they are going to go free the other Eternals in the other worlds. So they're
Harry Styles is in these movies now.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But, I guess that's kind of right that I had. I still thought Jonathan Majors was incredible. I think I just want a little bit more of him because his screen presence. is not fair.
A big problem with the movie was that nobody in the movie could keep up with him.
None.
That was a huge issue. That
these weren't like scrub actors.
No, it's just like.
But it didn't matter.
Yeah, they can't match him.
Some of those scenes, I'm just kind of like, yeah, he's carrying this scene, which is, I mean, we talked about this before when they first casted him, and I'm like seeing people in the I'm like seeing Marvel fans in the comment section. They're like, I've never heard of him. Is he any good? And then like all the black people were like, yeah, we know.
I don't know his name.
We knew, because Lovecraft, what he did in that, I knew. I said, yeah, he's gonna explode. So
we'll see. What comes next? What's the next Marvel thing? Secret.
It's supposed to be Secret Invasion, but they haven't put any dates out for that. Secret Invasion comes out this year. I think Echo was supposed to later on.
I forgot. There's so many things now. Oh my, Echo. Sorry.
And they gave us that. That preview of Loki, but I think it would be kind of goofy to have that in there, and we don't get Loki this year. We have to get him this year. But then there's Guardians of the Galaxy is in the summer, and then I think Ms. Marvel comes later on in the year. The Marvels.
I do think I have very high hopes for the Marvels and for Guardians of the Galaxy. I have very high hopes.
Here's what I'm nervous: Marvels will be mid, and Guardians of the Galaxy will be great. And then that's the last James Gunn movie that he does because he's gone over to DC, and now we lose another director, and that's making me nervous because Jon Favreau's done, Iron Man's done, he's with Star Wars, Mandalorian. James Gunn, he's gone. There's someone else, Russo brothers, they're gone.
The Russo brothers aren't going to do any more?
They're not planned to do anything more. So all we
have... These Avengers movies coming, they're not planned?
That's not the Russo brothers. So right now we have Ryan Coogler, the director that did Shang-Chi.
That's good. That's really good.
And that's it. I don't think I trust anyone else.
I think we should let Ryan Coogler do all of the movies.
Those two are the only directors that I would trust to do anything else.
I think people think Ryan Coogler can only direct black movies, but I think if you were to let him... Black movies. They're movies for everybody, but movies about black people, because that's pretty much all he's done. But I think that if you were to let him just take on a big project like this, I think he would eat. I mean, he'd be phenomenal.
He has not missed yet in his entire career.
But I think because all of his movies have been centered on black people and blackness, that people think he can't do anything else.
And that's true. It's just kind of like you're gonna have to start putting him in the category that you're putting with the James Gunn and the Russo brothers and the Favreaus, because Ryan Coogler has not missed
ones. Who's directing Ms. Marvels?
I don't know.
I think that will be good. I think it will be good solely because I think all three of those. Yes, I think all three of those women can carry a film.
That's true. That's fair, but I need the writing to be good because Captain Marvel was fun, but it wasn't. Yeah.
I mean, I'm going into it expecting a fun movie, but like a good fun movie is what I'm expecting.
That's what I need from every Marvel movie. That's what I need.
But I mean, I'm not expecting it to be like super intense. Is what I mean. I think it's going to be like a fun time, lighthearted but genuinely good.
Yes, I want a movie that fans and critics both love because that's what it was like for Marvel for quite some time.
Yeah.
So, all right. Any final thoughts on anything else?
No, but eventually we are going to have to do an episode on the Woman King.
Oh! We got to do that this week.
Yeah.
We got to do that this week.
I think we need to do an Oscars. We have to watch all the Best Picture nominees. I'm almost there. I think I only have to watch 4 more.
I don't want to watch Elvis because I think that movie is goofy.
Yeah, I feel like that's like if we have time, we'll get to it. But we should probably watch Avatar 2. Tar is a big one people are talking about. We need to watch Tar and Woman Talking, which I really don't want to watch. But
why?
It's about a bunch of women who have been repeatedly raped in this like cult that they live in.
Oh my god.
And then they start talking about their experiences and realizing that they've all been repeatedly sexually assaulted.
Is this like based off of a true story, or did they just make this up?
I don't know. It's giving true story vibes, but maybe it's not. I don't know. But it has like, what's that lady's name? She's won Oscars before. I can't remember her name.
Oh, I would love to do an episode on All Quiet on the Western Front, because that was peak cinema.
Would you put that? Oh, I forgot Woman King. I'm talking about Woman King in the Oscars. Woman King's not even nominated for no fucking Oscars.
No, I think Woman King was phenomenal, but I personally, Black Card revoked. I don't care. I think All Quiet on the Western Front was a better movie.
It was better.
Personally. Now, which one do I favor more? Woman King. But I think from a technical standpoint, I might go with that one. All right. We good?
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for tuning in. And let us know what you think about this episode of Last of Us, what you still think about Ant-Man, and what are your thoughts on the Oscars. See you all again. Take care, everyone. Peace.